So this one's interesting. It's not nearly as consequential as other stories, but I do find it particularly interesting because it concerns the Senate Minority Leader and resident eldritch abomination of the United States legislature, Mitch McConnell, who is now reaping the consequences of his disloyalty to Donald Trump, the cult leader of the MAGA movement. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, so Mitch McConnell is an interesting figure politically. He has a reputation for being a brilliant political strategist, which I think is overrated. I do think he is a very cunning and very effective short-term tactician, or perhaps a short-term strategist. I guess it depends on, how we consider the length of time. Mitch McConnell in some ways reminds me, making a Game of Thrones reference, of Tywin Lannister, who's one of my favorite characters in the sense that, again, when it comes to seizing power in the relative short term, McConnell is very effective, but the long-term erosion of norms, traditions, trust, and the common bonds which allegedly are supposed to unite statesmen on either side of the aisle, they've been corrupted and frayed in large part because of his actions. So he's a despicable person, there's no doubt. Now, what's interesting about McConnell is he's not, I think, a reckless breaker of norms. He has, again, he's very thoughtful, very cunning, whereas somebody like Donald Trump, it has no strategic acumen whatsoever. He's just brash and malignantly narcissistic. So Donald Trump will break anything and everything within his reach, even for just short-term gratification. McConnell takes a bit of a longer view than that. And there have been times, when Donald Trump was president and Mitch McConnell was the Senate Majority Leader, and obviously they were trying to work in tandem, that, Donald Trump would say things like, abolish the filibuster. And McConnell, who just refused to do it, not because he has any principled love for the filibuster, but because he felt like he didn't need to in order to affect the true Republican agenda, which is to cram through federal judges and to pass tax cuts for billionaires, okay? So they're different flavors of corrupt and evil, somebody like Trump and somebody like McConnell. And then obviously there was that episode that McConnell had a couple of weeks ago where he seemed to have some sort of, he froze on screen, on camera. Now, all of which is to set up that Mitch McConnell gave a speech recently, and I believe he was back in Kentucky at Fancy Farm, which is like a really big, I won't call it a political festival, but almost a political conference for the Commonwealth of Kentucky, in which Republicans and Democrats appear. The Democratic governor, Andy Beshear, was there, and he is wildly popular for a state that red, and he's very effective. By the way, if you live in Kentucky, definitely vote for him. I think the election's coming up this November. But anyway, then it was McConnell's turn to speak. Now, again, you would think that he might have some degree of warm reception. He was the Senate Majority Leader. He is the Senate Minority Leader. He is, in many ways, a crucial figure for both the decay of the Senate, to be sure, but also the numerous short-term gains of the Republican Party. Like him or not, McConnell is responsible for a tremendous amount of that. So how do you think he was received? Well, let's find out. And it goes on and on for more than a minute. So he's trying to give a speech, and he's being drowned out by a vast mob, presumably, Democrats as well, but also Republicans, demanding him to resign. Folks, this is not good for Mitch McConnell. This is where this is interesting to me, and I don't pity him at all. If anything, there is a degree of contempt for this man, because what's happening is Mitch McConnell has been deemed insufficiently loyal to Donald Trump and the MAGA movement, because Mitch McConnell has simultaneously tried to direct Trump like a bull in a china shop, so to speak. The reporting makes it clear that McConnell thinks Trump's an idiot. And of course, Trump is just objectively stupid, especially with respect to politics and governance. But McConnell, cynical, disgusting person that he is, thinks, okay, well, yeah, Donald Trump may be an idiot, maybe malignantly narcissistic, maybe fascistic, but I can use him for my advantage. And to some extent, he was able to do so. But now, Donald Trump has slipped the leash, and far beyond Mitch McConnell's ability to control. And as a result, Trump is furious and has been furious for years with Mitch McConnell and deems him insufficiently loyal, demands that he resign or be replaced. And there is dissent in a caucus, the Republican caucus, that Mitch McConnell used to have an iron, Palpatine-like grip on. And now he's suffering the consequences because he has a foot in both worlds, where he wants to exploit MAGA and the current authoritarian cult of the GOP for his old school style Republican aims, while also trying not to preside over the absolute death of the republic. Now, again, no sympathy for McConnell. He deserves this because he had every opportunity to use his considerable influence and considerable power to crush the MAGA movement when it began to gestate in 2015, 2016, 2017. But stupidly, he tried to exploit it for his own ends, and he's now suffering the consequences as a result. So he deserves this. But it doesn't bode well for, quote unquote, establishment Republicans. You're basically being faced with a choice. You either move to help Democrats destroy Trump and the MAGA movement politically, or you fall in line. Having a foot in both worlds, as you can clearly see, gets you nowhere, even if you're Mitch McConnell.